the product director at 2 Octobers, which means that I split my time between helping bike shops make money and building tools that help SEOs and other digital marketers do their jobs better. I came to 2 Octobers about a year ago after us merging our two companies together, which has been just an amazing thing for both of us. And I've just been so stoked on what we've been able to do for our bike clients that we brought over to 2 Octobers. Before founding my own company called Bike Shop SEO in 2016, I worked at Smart Detailing, helping bike shops make money. Before that, I worked in bike retail for about 20 years, including 7 years as the GM of a bike shop on Nantucket Island called Young's. And they're celebrating their 90th anniversary as a 4th generation family owned shop now, which is super, super cool. 2 Octobers, we're what's called a B Corp, which is amazing, which means that we're committed to balancing our profit and purpose. Other examples of B Corps are like Patagonia or New Belgium Brewing. While I've been in the bike industry forever, I did take a couple of years off in the middle when I lived in Cambridge, Massachusetts, but I kept my roots really close to the bike industry in that period of time as well, because I lived with at least one person who worked at 7, which was really cool because I got to know a bunch of people on the crew there, which was really neat. Just add a little bit of structure of what we're going to talk about today. And before we jump into that, I just wanted to just tell you, like, why are we here? Why are we doing this? One of the first things that happened when I joined 2 Octobers was approaching the rest of the leadership team with the idea that, hey, the pandemic's here. It's really going to hit bike shops. We don't know how yet, but we need to figure out how to help them. So last April, I think it was like April 7th, we did our first webinar on the issue. And it was great. We had a lot of great feedback from folks. I know that there are people on this call that put the stuff that I shared with them into practice. And I don't know quite how large of an impact it had on their revenue for a variety of reasons, but I know that it was really quite large. And we'll get to that in office hours. Hopefully they can chime in on what kinds of impacts that it got. In terms of what we're going to talk about today. Oh, so sorry about that. So we knew that the webinar from last year was amazing. We knew it had a positive impact. I felt like there were lessons to be learned after a year of working this specific type of digital marketing in the trenches. And I felt like because I had access to data from a lot of different demographics and a lot of different markets, that we could share some of the things that we've learned, and then also share some of the strategies for how we help shops make money. And part of that is me sharing with you what we call the revenue model. And we'll get to that later when we get into kind of like marketing for 2021. But it's a really simple model for driving revenue that I hope you can take to heart, because I know that it'll drive revenues both in store and online. Okay, so section 1, we're going to be talking about looking backwards. We're going to see some of the stuff that we learned in 2020. And then we're going to talk about some things that we think are going to move the needle for you in 2021. Those things include conversion rate optimization, and we'll share with you some of the tools that we've built to help solve those problems. We're also going to talk about inventory. I think inventory is the biggest problem that you all face this year. And I want to share some ideas for how we're dealing with it. It doesn't mean that we have all the answers, and I'm hoping to learn from you also when we get to the office hours section of our time together. And then I'll just sort of share with you how we're building our marketing flywheels in the 4th section. Does that sound good to everybody? And if you have questions as we get going, make sure to send them to Maggie. She's an amazing moderator, and she will make sure that if I'm not clear about something, that I can go back over it to make sure that we're all on the same page. Okay, cool. So we're going to be looking at some numbers from some of our clients. It's all anonymized. It's not all of our clients, all of our bike clients. We had to segment them out based on whether or not they worked with us all year, whether or not they continue to do PPC all year, and you'll understand why that's important in a couple of minutes, and whether or not they continue to do SEO with us all year. And then we also got that list a little bit smaller if we found that there were a couple shops that had the exact same types of numbers. So we kind of segmented it out to make it easier for you to see. This is what we saw. We saw 301% revenue increase, which is awesome. And when we're looking at that, we're talking about online revenues rather than in-store, because we just don't have access to everybody's in-store revenue data. We saw a massive increase in traffic, which speaks to just, as you know, working inside retail every day, there's just massive increase in demand. We saw huge growth in the number of transactions. We also saw a conversion rate increase that was pretty substantial. And we also saw a massive increase in the average order value, which we attribute to people really embracing bike purchasing online. This is our revenue for making money. And I'm actually surprised that it's in this part in the deck, but as we go farther down, you'll sort of, we'll come back to this because it's really important. For everything that we do to drive revenue, all we're trying to do is increase traffic, both in store and online. We're trying to improve the conversion rate or the percentage of people that decide to buy. And we're trying to improve or increase the average order value. And those are the three levers that we have to help shops make money. And as we get into the deck, you'll kind of see how each part of the tactics and strategies that we employ will help to grow the revenue. And when we're talking about building marketing flywheels, for me, it's as simple as this. And each piece of it gets to be more complex. But if you want to have a high level understanding of how to make more money, this is a fantastic, simple mental framework to start with. And I'm having a hard time getting this to work. Okay, cool. I wanted to just share with you also what we saw for numbers, and I want to guide you through how to read this. I'm not going to share real revenue numbers other than to say that we had 4 shops this past year break $1 million for the first time. We had one shop that had barely broken $1 million in online revenue in 2019. And their revenue ballooned up to about 5.3 million this past year. And so the way to read this chart is it's percent revenue change in blue, sessions, traffic change in that teal color, the conversion rate change, percentage change in pink, and the average order value change. And there's a bunch of really interesting things to see out of this. You could see that the 4 shops on the left definitely had much larger gains than the 2 shops on the right. And there are a couple of different takeaways that we're going to get into in a couple of minutes on how to read those numbers and what we learned when we looked at them. We also saw in 2020 just a massive amount of difference in how people were searching for the 4 top brands. This data is coming from a tool called Google Trends, which allows us to track interest in specific search terms over time. And what's cool about this is you can go all the way back to 2004. And what we can see is that in that first week where we started to see nationwide lockdown stuff right around March 17th, that's when everything went crazy in terms of demand. And it also peaked right around June 1, which is aligned with the data that I've seen from lots of other sources. This is not going to be a webinar like Ryan Atkinson from Smart Detailing had a great webinar that he did in December. And in that webinar, he went deep into all kinds of industry trends. We're not going to be doing that. We're going to talk more on strategies and tactics to make money. But I just wanted to give this as background just to show how the demand just went crazy last year. Same thing on parts brands. And there's a caveat on Shimano's data, which is the dark purple line here. This, I can't segment out Shimano bike and Shimano fishing. So yes, the growth looks massively bigger than the other two parts brands, but at the same time, I thought it was relevant to include that. But we can still see that growth happening right at the same time. So we saw just all over massive growth. What did we see that correlated to revenue growth the most? Increased ad spend. And if you're not doing pay-per-click yet, when we talk about ad spend, that's the amount of money that you're spending each month with an advertising platform like Google in order to drive traffic to your site. When we get into our marketing flywheel, I'll explain like why it's important and how these things fit together. But that was really critical. We saw that the shops that increased their ad spend the most saw some of the biggest gains. And it wasn't that revenue was immediately attributable to the ad spend, but they correlated, the overall revenue correlated really tightly with that increase in spend. And when we get into like how we drove revenue and what our performance was like, it'll make sense to you why they're tied so closely. We also saw that how people approached their purchasing and buying in the earliest part of the pandemic had a massive impact on their ability to meet demand. And that the shops that sort of like closed down business or pulled back aggressively right at the beginning of the pandemic were not able to take advantage. And the folks that bought really aggressively in the middle of March and early April and got product in the back order queue early were also really lucky in that they were able to leverage that to drive massive revenue growth. We also know that fulfilling from suppliers was a huge part of some shops' success as they made those like huge growth from like one shop, for example, went from doing like 450K in online revenue to about 2.4 million. They had to do radically different things on the fulfillment side, whether it was growing their in-house fulfillment team from a group of one person to a team of 10 people. And that type of trend was pretty consistent with our larger retailers, where they saw their small e-commerce teams balloon into a major fulfillment operation, even to the point where they started to need or think about needing logistical warehouse space in order to fulfill from. But shops that were able to take advantage of manufacturer fulfillment, especially Trek and QBP, saw a lot of their internal work made a lot easier in crazy times. We also saw, though, that inaccurate inventory data from manufacturers was a massive pain point. And when I say pain point, it manifested itself in several different ways, and we'll get to that. But one of the ways was just the fact that customers were not really clearly communicated when they should expect product, because shops might or might not have been told by the manufacturers, and the manufacturers just might not have accurate data, period. And the ones that did not have accurate data, I think, suffered a bunch last year. For the first time ever with clients that we worked with, we saw that shops started to sell product that was on back order for manufacturers. And at the time, I was pretty leery about it. And I voiced those concerns to several retailers, and people made a wide variety of decisions whether or not to go down that path. And there were pros and there were cons. You know, like one of the biggest things on the pro side was just more sales. You know, if you're selling something that's on back order, that gives you an opportunity at a sale that you probably would have missed otherwise. But there are also cons. And this is what had me leery up front, actually. I saw just lots of opportunities for things to go wrong, and situations where customers were going to suffer. And in the end, it proved to be enough of a challenge for us to develop a really cool tool that we'll get into. in a couple minutes. Let's see. So some of those cons were canceled orders because the retailer wasn't able to fulfill quickly enough. And on the face of it, that might not be that big of a deal. But depending on which platform you use and which payment processing tool they use, those canceled orders could prove to be super costly. And that was definitely the case for a number of our retailers. And also just the fact that managing split orders can be brutal, especially when you're trying to manage a flow of 100 to 200 orders a day. And I know that that sounds crazy if you're a company like QBP, but you're one of few people in the industry that can, manage that kind of crazy volume. That's still a challenge that retailers are struggling with. Okay, so we see that order fulfillment and inventory were two of the biggest burdens, and we'll go over some of the ways that shops were able to do this better last year, and also sort of like what to think about for this year. We saw that there were a growth of different fulfillment methods that really made a lot of sense due to the pandemic. We saw local deliveries as a service increasing a lot across the industry. I got to call out Smart Detailing for going into overdrive to produce new fulfillment methods inside their platform. We also saw a massive uptake in the quantity of manufacturers and distributors that were able to start to do direct fulfillment, helping bike shops out a lot. That was really huge. We know that on the inventory side, there are massive problems that you all are facing, and we'll get to ways of getting new inventory that might be thinking a little bit out of the box. None of the stuff I'm sharing with you is revolutionary, but it might trigger a thought process for you to start doing a little bit more investigation. One of the things that we did that I'm most proud of from our time last year was building a tool called Ring My Bell. That's our internal code name for it. And it's a notify me when this item comes back in stock tool. And we built that because we felt like being notified when an item was in stock on the day that it's available from a single bike shop was a really powerful way for that bike shop to capture the sale when every other shop in the country was not able to get that product either. And for our shop to be able to tell that person first, we saw that as a massive competitive advantage. And so we built a tool that helps our clients accomplish that goal. Other things to think about, selling used bikes. When I managed Young's Bicycle Shop, it's on the island of Nantucket. It's a super bike friendly island. Our bike fleet we had 1,500 bikes in the fleet. And so every year we would turn over 300 bikes. And so the whole process of buying and prepping used bikes for sale, I know that it's massively profitable, and if done right, can have really high margins. And also it sets you up for better inventory times, because if you're selling a bike that's in amazing condition that's used, you're building trust in a massive way so that the next time they need a bike, they'll come back and buy something new when you actually have better inventory. Talking to our clients, finding new sources of inventory. There's lots of creative ways to do that, and we'll get into that a little bit. And also in terms of maximizing revenue dollars based on your inventory, you really, really, really need to use your point of sale system and the data inside of that to help you decide what to market with your content. As we move forward in 2021 and 2022, I just want to throw out my biggest wish list item, which is shipping integration for Smart Detailing. In that big bolded sentence below that, for anyone that I've talked with that's looking to make a change, it's almost always due to the challenges with order fulfillment. And we see that really come into play when a retailer is doing somewhere between 1.25 and 1.5 million online. due to the volume of packages that they're moving out the door every day. And I know if you're just getting started with e-commerce, you're like, oh my God, 1.25 million, that's crazy talk or crazy numbers. Well, it's a lot of money and it definitely takes time to get to that place. But we'll share with you some of the ideas that'll help you get from zero to way more money. Cool. So let's talk about conversion rate, because that's like an area where we feel like we're going to be able to see the biggest gains this year. And I'll explain why I'm saying that. The percentage of people that buy on your website is tiny, period. In bike shops, we see that rate fluctuates anywhere on the very high side. I've seen shops that are converting about 2% of their visitors when they go to the site, 2% are buying. The vast majority of sites that I have access to and have seen in the past are somewhere between 0.25% and 0.75% conversion rates. And those conversion rate numbers are awful. And the other thing that we see is that on average, something like 70, and this is a range too, it fluctuates anywhere from 65 to 75% of people that get to your checkout abandon their checkouts. And so, yes, we can build traffic, and yes, we can build a average order value, but we see that these numbers as the easiest to improve on, thus driving the biggest impact on revenue for 2021. Hopefully that makes sense for everybody. I love this graphic. Maggie, you make such nice decks. I totally got to call you out. Your typography is so cool. Oh, this one too. Yeah, we think this is the biggest one. Okay, cool. In past webinars, I've talked about the importance of having a chat tool on the site. I've been told by some retailers that they've seen revenue increase as much as 30% by incorporating a chat tool. You're going to get all kinds of queries through your chat tool. You're going to get, is this really in stock? Question mark. Will it really ship out today? And then you'll get stuff that's not going to convert into sales. Are you actually open? Can I come in the store? But, these are some of the things that retailers have told us they've loved after they turned on the chatbot. I have heard from some shops that they have a hard time managing the chat tool if they're on the very small side. But if you're approaching multi-location, or if you are multi-location, and if you have a like a dedicated online team or fulfillment team, they've reported to us like a massive reduction in phone call volume around buying stuff. They've also talked about being able to regain control of their inbox, which those two things were just massive for one of our latest converts. And then also we're meeting customers where they are. And that's a message that we've heard for years as bike retailers, that you have to be where your customers are. And right now they expect to be safe, and they expect to be catered to, and they expect for you to fulfill the way that they want. And a chat tool is totally in alignment with that. If you're looking for tools to actually consider signing up with, we've done testing and research into this. And one of the most important things about a chat tool is that it loads quickly and doesn't get in the way of the page loading. And for that reason, we're really bullish on a tool called Live Agent. It's inexpensive, it's flexible, it has different templates, a bunch of different templates that allows you to customize how you communicate with people via email after the fact. It allows you to connect to Slack. You can connect it to Zapier. When we hooked it up to one of our major retailers recently, they saw, I think they sold 6 bikes in their first day as a result of using the chat tool, which from my point of view is just like massive success. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. conversion rate tip number two, depending on your platform, you're either going to have access to a tool like this or not. I think if you're on Shopify, there are plugins that allow you to do this. Most of our clients are on smart detailing. And so we saw this as a massive opportunity to build something specific for our clients. And the way it works is if you're on a page, you can, there's a little green thing on like bike pages, indoor trainer pages, car racks, like high dollar value, high margin items only. We're not putting this on tubes or tire pages. We're being really focused with the products that we want to deal with. And they click on the little thing, it opens up a pop-up that shows them the same variation data, whether it's color, size, build kit, whatever choices, and it'll also grab the image from the product detail page. The user can then fill out the form and they submit to us. And then what's amazing about that is that we now have an email address. And what's cool is that as time goes on, right after they sign up, they're going to get an email that just lets them know, hey, we'll let you know when this is back in stock. And then we check to make sure that that item's in stock. And when it is in stock, we send them an email. And this button is amazing because it has a link there that allows us to tie the purchase to that individual user if they decide to buy, which is really, really cool. In my humble opinion, I'm like crazy stoked on it. As a marketer, you're always trying to close the loop so you can attribute revenue to specific sources and stuff. And for us to be able to tie that whole loop is really exciting. Another tip is use a cart abandonment recovery tool. When I was at Bike Shop SEO, I built one that I named Bike Basket. These revenue numbers, I don't know if you can see this, but since we built the tool, it's recovered $1.9 million in revenue, which based on this last 30 days numbers, it looks like we're going to break 2 million in the next 20 to 30 days, which is crazy exciting. The reason why they're total no-brainers is that they grow revenue a little bit over 8% out of the box. And that's crazy. The reason that I'm building these specific tools to help bike shops is that I'm finding opportunities where we can develop what I like to think of as blue ocean strategies. Like I want to build something that solves a problem that no one else can solve quickly and efficiently to help our clients make money. And both of these, they just like drive revenue a little bit more, and they help revenue compound a little bit more and a little bit more. And the way Bike Basket works is when they go to their cart, they start to fill it out. If they don't check out, it will then send them a series of emails. And what's cool about this is that when the user clicks this button, this return to my items, it will then take them to a temporary page. And you can kind of see this flow. It's a little too fast on the right. But they click this button, the return to my items. It then takes them to a temporary page to build their cart. And then lastly, unfortunately, my recording wasn't great. You'll see that it takes them to the completed cart, but the cart closes too quickly right there. And what's neat about it is it works on every device. So if they visit on a mobile device on step one, it'll send them an email. And then if they open it on a desktop in a different browser, it'll still build the cart form, which is really awesome. Yeah, and this has the impact of growing revenue 7 to 15%. We've seen a range, but it's super impactful.
Hey, Noah, really quick before you move on.
Yo.
Back to ring my bell really quickly. Do you have any plans to get it to work with Lightspeed?
Get it to work with Lightspeed. Lightspeed ecom? Do they mean the website platform?
I'm assuming. George, feel free to clarify. Yep, that's what he means.
Let me think about that for a second. I have not thought about that, George. It's a great question. Like basically one of our shop friends uh, said, hey, it would be really cool if you could build this tool. And then at the time I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And I started to investigate how to build it. And I started to see a flow of how we could execute on it. At which point, internally we got buy-in from Nico and Chris, our two founders, and then that's when we got to work. I don't know how, like, I don't have any clients on Lightspeed now. And so I don't know that there's really a case for us to build it or translate it over, but I haven't looked at the code to understand um, how it would work. My sense is that we could do it. Yeah, my sense is we could, but I don't know if it's something that we're going to have interest in building in the next quarter or so, based on projects that we have in place at the moment. George, does that answer the question? I hope. Let's pick it back up during office hours. I'm stoked to talk about it. There's a whole bunch of chats. Holy smokes. Is there stuff I need to know, or can I keep going?
You're good. Keep going.
I'm good. Okay, cool.
One was just from me telling you that we're running behind.
Oh, sweet. Oh, good. I was really afraid I was going to go too fast rather than too slow. Okay, cool. So, inventory tips: sell used bikes. Do it. Send out email marketing campaigns to your massive list. We buy bikes. Definitely take the time to tune up the bikes. Do not do a sell as is, because that's your reputation. You're going to be judged by the quality of your tune. And then they're going to use that to understand how you do business in all facets of your business. I know that might be a departure for some, but that's just my advice and counsel. I have sold, I don't know how many in my time. I've probably sold 10,000 used bikes in my bike career. And I know what impact selling a great one has. POS led marketing. This, I think, is a huge takeaway from today's talk. And I feel like, this is not rocket science, but one thing that it does seem like a lot of retailers are not leveraging their POS data when they're thinking about what to actually market. One thing that I do is I'll do an export out of whatever, Lightspeed, Ascend. A lot of times I'll lean on Smart Etailing's ability to get the POS file. I'll download that to my computer. I will then filter that list by only product that is in stock. And then I will sort it by price descending so that I'm seeing all the most expensive stuff at the top. And I'll see if I have full size runs of specific product. And then we'll build out content around that. And those different pieces of content can be Google My Business posts that tell people about the stuff that we have that's high margin with good availability. And I'll also build long form content around that. And we'll get to that in a couple of minutes on the long form content. But most shops are not doing this. And if you have high quantities of some inventory and nothing of everything else, focus on your superpower, focus on what you do have. Try and find new sources of inventory. I know that sounds like some random guy just telling you to be smarter, but we are in an inventory wasteland from a lot of the top suppliers right now. And a couple strategies that clients are telling me are successful in terms of getting inventory are sourcing custom bikes. You're going to find B and C tier bike manufacturers now that for some reason or another have capacity. And shops are having bikes custom made for their shop that are in line with their shop's image. If they're a city shop, they're getting a fleet of fixies. If they're a BMX shop, they're getting 29-inch BMX fat bikes, etc. I think that makes a lot of sense. Buying containers has also proven successful for some of our shops. Again, if you're doing that and you're successful, you're going to need to find warehouse space close to the shop. This gets to the thing that I was saying about POS marketing, where you definitely want to look at margin and high dollar value to drive what you're building. Let's get into strategy a little bit. Pay per click. If you're not doing Google shopping ads, I strongly recommend that you do it. It is a total no-brainer. Just to tell you what they are, if you search for a specific product, you're going to see a grid of products for sale. And then what you're going to see is that these convert like crazy. There are some categories that you have to do what are called text or search ads for. Those are electric bikes. And the reason for that is that they have a motor and they go faster than 15 miles an hour, which is a special category of products that Google restricts. So you have to do search ads for your electric bike ads, and increase your ad spend aggressively. And if you have an agency helping you, they can responsibly do that. It's going to be hard for you to manage, probably, but if you're working with a great agency, I think you're going to find that they're able to scale up with you. In terms of what we were able to do last year, these are our numbers based on every single bike client that we worked with, which means that, and this is a great number to get familiar with if you're ever interviewing someone to help you. You can ask them, what's your ROAS for clients, and ask to see the data. But what this means is that for every dollar that was spent, just the ad spend, we were able to generate $11.14 worth of revenue, and that's gross revenue. I love that. Okay, Google My Business, create posts. We built a tool to make this easier for you. It's called Postomatic. And if you Google Postomatic, you're going to see that it's a Google Sheets add-on that allows you to build Google My Business posts. And it also allows you to build questions and answers about your Google My Business location. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say Google My Business, we need to talk during office hours, because you're losing money if you're not leveraging that. Everything that you're doing in Google My Business, you want to have UTM tags for all your links that point from Google My Business to your website, so that you can track your Google My Business traffic. What you're going to find when you start doing that is that Google My Business is driving people to your store. Big surprise. But you're also going to find that your online revenue is massive. You're going to see that 10 to 40% of your revenue starts with GMB, which is pretty crazy. If you have a single location shop, point that URL from GMB to your homepage. If you've got multiple locations, that's awesome. Point each GMB location to your store page. And store pages are just an amazing piece of content. If you're not thinking about them, I'm going to give you some things to think about. This is an example on the left of a really good store page. It has an image of the front, a great introductory paragraph. It's got a map. It's got store hours. There's an email address to contact. There's a link to best local rides. You're going to notice that we've got popular categories. You're going to notice top sellers, and you're going to notice that we have top brands. We also have lots of super high quality images of the interior of the store. Oops. And you're also going to see down here, I got to move this little thingy out of the way. Sorry about that. I can't see. Down here, you're going to see our specializations. I know this is really granular. In office hours, I'll show you when you make a Google slide deck, no matter what, it seems to pixelate your images after you paste them on the page. It's crazy annoying. Here's the thing. We looked in our data to determine what we're showing for products, brands, categories, and specializations. And the way that we did it is we look at what content people go to after they visit this page. And I'll show you how to do that in office hours. It's a really powerful tactic. And if you're seeing that people come to this page and they end up going to buy an Electra Loft 7D, well, I want to reduce that friction for them to go buy that bike. and I'm going to add that as a best-selling product on my store page. What you're going to find is that the effort that you spend building out your store pages is going to have a massive impact on your revenue. So spend time here. Even if it feels like, oh, it's good enough. It's like, no, it's not good enough. This is a huge, huge revenue driver. Yeah, so I already went over just some things. Also, if you have a review widget or testimonials that you're really proud of, throw them on the store page. Anything that'll build trust so people know, like, and trust you. Great opportunities to add them to the store page. Something else to think about. I've been in communication with Retail Toolkit. I know that their pricing model has changed to become more attractive for more bike dealers. And before doing the webinar, I reached out to them to see what we could do to take care of folks. And they're offering a free, no obligation connected demo. You have to jump through a few hoops to make sure from their perspective that you're a good fit. But if you go to this address, retailtoolkit.com/2Octobers, that is not an affiliate link. There's no financial relationship between us and them. I just know that for the shops that I have access to their Retail Toolkit data, I can do some really great things with automated email campaigns that are driving a lot of revenue. And so some of the benefits is that you're going to have tons of insight into like what your team is doing, inventory data, and you're also going to be able to build out automated email campaigns that are focused on purchase history. So like, let's say a family buys their son or daughter a 12-inch bike in year one. A year later, you're talking with them about trading that in towards a 16-inch, et cetera, all the way up through the kid's buying cycle. Same thing with spelling the word riders properly is moving people up market, getting someone from a fitness bike to a road bike, getting someone from a 105 Grupo to riding on a with Ultegra, or getting someone on a hardtail to think about a full suspension, or getting someone from a hybrid to think about an electric bike, thinking about helmets that have a lifespan, or tires, or shorts. And in normal times, I think you're going to find that it's also really powerful for marketing your service department. I know that everybody's service department is just completely inundated right now, but I think that that's a great opportunity as well. Content. I think that building content is hugely important to driving revenue. And the reason is this: if you have a website and you've got a lot of products on your website, the things that can rank for traffic are the product detail pages, and the collection pages, which are pretty thin content. There's not a lot of keyword data there other than mentioning of brand name, model name, some price data, et cetera. So like your keyword universe that you could rank and get traffic for is small. Whereas if you invest the time and energy to build the most helpful, useful content you can, I think what you're going to find is that if you're spending 10x the effort, you're getting 100x the results. And if this is an area where you know that you and your team are not going to be successful, I think it's worth hiring someone to do it, especially if you want to do real revenue with e-commerce. Real revenue to me is trying to go from a place where you're doing maybe like $40,000 in revenue to 300,000. Or if you want to go from 500,000 to 4 million, this is the part of your business that you're going to need to grow in a massive way. You're going to basically become a content factory. You're going to become a publisher. And because of that, you're going to rank for tons and tons of different types of keyword families that are going to allow you to rank for multiple different brands, multiple different models, multiple different price points. And you're going to see your revenue track accordingly. Content to focus on: category, brand, product launches, comparison articles, high margin products. Wrapping up. I'm like flying through this, Maggie, because I want to make sure that we have time. But
You're
Let's see.
doing great.
Am I good in terms of your
Yeah,
time?
perfect, perfect.
Good. Almost done. So if you need a PPC partner, uh, I don't know who's better than us at doing PPC for the bike industry. And I mean that sincerely. If you need help, we're here to help. Happy to help you with that. We also do coaching, which I think is super cool. We teach organizations how to do PPC. We teach them how to do social media stuff. We have the capabilities to also teach content and SEO, but right now our main focus is on these two areas. We also provide probably the best SEO services in the bike industry. And that's working with brands, that's working with bike shops. We don't talk a ton about the bike brands, but we do have a history of that. And we also build some of the best content that you're going to find in the cycling industry. And you're going to see content that we've produced out there ranking. So that's a little bit about us. Here are some workshops that we have upcoming. The one on March I'm doing the one in March, right? That's me.
Yeah, that's you.
Oh, cool. Okay. So if you want to learn about using search data, I am crazy excited to do the one in March. I think that it'll probably blow your mind a little bit, like how to access and use all the data that's available to you through Google Search Console. And I know that whenever Nico does his webinar, the one that's coming up in April, that's one of the most attended ones that we have at 2 Octobers. And then the rest of these are really amazing as well. Is Yasmin doing the one in May?
Yep.
Yeah, hers are like you would go to a conference to hear her speak. And y'all might want to come. I'm also doing something at Local U, which is a local SEO conference on April 7th, where I'm talking about how to use data to drive revenue for local businesses. And I'm going to be focusing on using bike shops as my example. And if you want to get better at local SEO, that organization is really amazing. In terms of signing up for our webinars, they're all free. 2octobers.com/upcoming-training. And I think, oh yeah. And then just in terms of finding me, you can get me at my email, LinkedIn, but to be honest, I'm most active on Twitter at Noah Lerner. And I'm also very active recently in a new social media platform called called Clubhouse. And my username is the Kraken. I don't know. Folks here at 2 Octobers gave me that nickname, which is awesome. But if you're on Clubhouse, it's an amazing platform to connect with anyone and learn about anything. And if you're not, and you have an iOS device, let me know during office hours and I'll give you an invite if you want to find out what it's all about. But I help people with SEO on Clubhouse all the time. And it's just something where we love to dispel the myth that SEOs are a bunch of snake oil salesmen. So it's pretty fun to help out. And that is the whole shebang.